This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 111th time, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Been a couple of weeks since we've done a regular version of this. Of course, last week we had the Sunday Night NFL rewatch between the Lions and the Chiefs, which completely went in the Chiefs' favor and basically brought them back to relevancy again. So, yay, I guess. But this will actually be the last regular Reviewing Network Live episode for the next month because we have 4 consecutive weeks of the Sunday Night NFL rewatch that I'll get to at the end of the show here. But if we have any major news stories break during the next month or so, it won't be on this particular show. I'll talk about it in like short videos here on the channel. But yeah, we're gonna be away from this for a little bit here because we got 4 consecutive weeks of NFL rewatches coming your way. But like I said, we'll delve into that at the end of this show here. But let's go ahead and get to what we usually do here, and that is take a look at the weekend box office as a whole. And it is a very not impressive box office in general. In fact, the last couple of weeks have been kind of mediocre at best, but we'll touch on that as we go along here. I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week because I didn't get to cover it in the halftime report because of the death of Diane Keaton last Saturday, so it'll be my first time talking about most of these movies here. So let's begin with number 5, which was number 2 last week, and that is Roofman, the movie with Channing Tatum, directed by the guy who did The Place Beyond the Pines. Also had Peter Dinklage and Kirsten Dunst in it. Last week, it opened up to about $8 million. If you include the Columbus Day weekend totals, it was $9.2 million. So not a bad opening for that. But it has fallen off to 54% from last week. $3.7 million this weekend, bringing its 2-week total up to $15.5 million. And if you count worldwide numbers, it's up to $17.2 million worldwide. Budget-wise, I think it was a small-budgeted movie. I think it was like $20 million, if I'm not mistaken. Even smaller than that, $14 million. So they didn't make it money back overall on that film. Reviews were actually pretty good. So it is a hit overall. Maybe not the big blockbuster hit that a lot of people might be hoping for, but it still made a lot of money at the box office. Not a lot of money, but it did make its budget back overall. It should continue to do well over the next couple of weeks or so. Overall, a decent hit. Not a bad way to start off the Skydance Paramount era, since this was officially the first Paramount film with the Skydance Corporation logo underneath it. But I haven't seen it yet, but I want to check it out, though. Moving on to number 4, we have the number 3 film from last week, One Battle After Another, which brought in $4 million this weekend. After 4 weeks, it's brought in $61.9 million domestically. If you count the worldwide numbers, it's up to $162.5 million. Still well off of that $200 million budget that it has, which was to be expected overall. But this is a movie that's going to do well come with the Oscars in general. The Academy Awards should play a huge part in terms of the box office in general for this particular film. At least one would think, but let's go ahead and move on to one of the new releases this week, and one that certainly Lionsgate was hoping for much more success with Good Fortune. And let's just say that The Good Fortune certainly was not a movie that lived up to the good fortune that it was supposed to have. Good Fortune brought in $6.2 million. The budget on this was $30 million in general. Reviews for this also were not too bad in general. You got a movie where, it's a movie about Keanu Reeves, who plays an angel who basically tries to show Aziz Ansari's character, this struggling guy, that money doesn't solve one's problems by body slapping him with his wealthy employer, played by Seth Rogen, which results in the angel losing his wings while the work he did as an angel begins to unravel around him. So it's a movie that could have an interesting hook to it. I mean, we've kind of seen this story done before in other TV shows, like, The Simpsons and Fairly Odd Parents, and Robot Chicken has done that, showing that, you're trying to show somebody that the world would be better, the world wouldn't be better off without you, and then it turns out, hey, the world actually is better off without them. And the idea with this was that I'm reading this here. It's kind of interesting that Ansari, who directed this movie, moved forward with this film because he wanted to make a comedy film with the intent for it to be theatrically released, citing the success of Barbie as proof of the viability of such a project. Well, the difference is that Barbie is based off of a worldly recognized brand of dolls, and you're making a movie that has been done to death before several times, so I don't know how you convinced Lionsgate to sell you the film on that front there, but obviously it didn't work out in your favor. In fact, Lionsgate's been kind of struggling for the last couple of years now. You know, last week they had their big Oscar prestige film, The Kiss of the Spider Woman with Jennifer Lopez, come out. They made the big mistake of opening it in wide release because it did not do well and actually dropped 82% from last weekend. It's only brought in $1.4 million over the course of 2 weeks, and, you know, I really get the feeling that a lot of people are not getting the idea of how to sell these awards contenders to people because, yeah, you're not going to get people to go out to see these awards contenders if you don't do it the old-fashioned way. Have it be a limited release, and then as the buzz builds up, then do the wide release. Like, I don't know why Lionsgate thought, well, we got to put this out in 1,000 theaters. We got to put it out wide now. It's just like, why? Like, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And now you really risk this movie that has some awards buzz behind it for Jennifer Lopez not getting any traction whatsoever. The same thing could be said with Dwayne Johnson with The Smashing Machine, which is also not doing well for A24. And yet, for some reason, they open it in over 3,000 theaters. It's just like, why? Like, why would you do that? Like, that's ridiculous. But After the Hunt, which is the new movie from Luca Guadagnino, opened up this weekend, just out of the top 10 in wider release. Didn't do well either. $1.5 million in 1,200 theaters, $1.7 million in general. But then again, that's the one that has the most mixed reception and probably won't do well come award season. But who knows? We'll wait and see about that. Speaking of movies that are not doing well right now, let's get to number 2, which was the number 1 movie last weekend, and that is, of course, Tron Ares, which last week it brought in $36 million after the 4-day opening totals, and this weekend it brought in a dismal $11.1 million, losing 66% of its audience from the last weekend, and bringing its 2-week total to $54.6 million. If you account the worldwide totals, it is now over $100 million worldwide, which is not good for the fact that this thing cost over $200 million to make. And, you know, here's what, you know, it says a lot when you look at a movie like Tron and you think to yourself, well, this didn't work for a couple reasons. One, the demand for a new Tron movie was not there. It just was not there. It's been 15 years since the last Tron movie. And, you know, not only that, you've got a Tron movie with Jared Leto in it, who is a very polarizing person, and is somebody that will not sell your movie. And it's been known that he won't sell your movie ever since the flop of Morbius. I mean, yeah, he's an Academy Award-winning actor, and he's somebody who, to be perfectly honest, was not the least of this movie's problems, but he's box office poison at this point. There's no reason that you should attach yourself to somebody who is seen as somebody who can easily kill your movie, which that's not good news for Masters of the Universe. But the thing that makes this all the more hilarious to me is the fact that, you know how they do those things where they bring the celebrities out to California theaters and they say, like, are you ready to see the movie? And it turns out it's the stars of the movie. I mean, we had it earlier in the year with Jack Black with the Minecraft movie, and we had it, and you know, you see it all the time. Will Smith did it for Bad Boys for Life. The last Bad Boys movie, not for Life, Ride or Die. So they did it for Jared Leto and Tron Ares, and I have the video here, which I think is fucking hilarious because you're gonna see in a little bit here if you watch the video here. I'll put it up in the clip here, but just take a look at how packed this theater is. I mean, it's amazing the level of people that are in this theater. Let's just take a look and see.
I said, are you ready?
It's not helping that Jared Leto's dressed up like fucking Darth Maul from Star Wars The Phantom Menace, but it gets better. Just watch.
How you doing, San Francisco? You know,
I mean, just look at how empty. I mean, technically it's not officially empty, but look at how just desolated this movie theater is. I mean, this is pretty depressing. I mean, this is in San Francisco. I mean, this isn't even one of the top theaters in LA, for God's sakes. And it's just like, it's just embarrassing to watch. And it's just like, like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And it doesn't help that the movie itself was just garbage. I mean, yes, on a technical level, it's a great looking film. On a musical level, it's a great sounding film. The Nine Inch Nails music is great. The problem with Tron Ares is that it's a movie that is literally a film that is written by AI and ChatGPT in terms of how to create a blockbuster, and it fails on every single possible level. I mean, when you're throwing comedic elements into this movie that are so badly put in there and are so unnecessary to Tron, like, you can't help but feel like you're being let down, because I was seriously let down by this movie. I wanted it to be good. I like the other Tron movies. I love how, as soon as this movie flopped, everyone was just like, well, now can we finally admit that Tron doesn't need to be a franchise? Tell you what, when Now You See Me 3 comes out next month, you better say the same thing, because that's a franchise that doesn't need to be a franchise, because those movies are terrible. Those movies don't work at all. They're not good films. Tron at least was groundbreaking for what they did visually. The Tron films that came before it led to good stuff. The Tron rides and merchandising and shows that came on after that were more than worthy of it. If someone like me is telling you that this movie is bad, that should tell you something right there. And, it just wasn't a good movie. It was a bad film. It's right up there with Jurassic World Rebirth as one of the worst disappointments of the year so far for me. I mean, this is a bad movie. This is a really, really bad movie. A really bad sequel. But let's go ahead and get to a really good sequel that came out this weekend. And I might be the only one that thinks this, but number one, Black Phone 2, I think is one of the best horror sequels we've had in a long time. And audiences came out in droves for it, and it actually saved Blumhouse from having a really terrible year in 2025. Black Phone 2 brought in $26.5 million this weekend. For its debut, actually a little bit higher than the original Black Phone did in the summer of 2022, and only had a budget of $42 million to it, and if you got worldwide numbers, it's at $30 million, so it's more than halfway to making its money back. And like I said, man, in my review, I really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I loved the look of the movie. I loved how there was I loved how the tension built up. The scares were really good. The acting was really good. The directing was top notch. The visual look of the film is very cool. It reminded me a lot of that movie Ghost Story from the 1980s. It was a really, really damn good movie that a lot of people. I mean, here's the thing. It was well received by critics. But when you talk to a lot of people who saw the film, most of them are coming out very disappointed by it. Just kind of like, why? Like, what did they do wrong here that I'm missing here? I mean, this is a really good movie. This is one of the best horror sequels I've seen in a long, long time, and maybe one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. I mean, this is the movie that Sinister 2 should have been. It's a movie what Sinister 2 should have been. I mean, Sinister 2 failed because they didn't have Scott Derrickson directing it. And it was mostly just been there, done that type of stuff. But at least this one takes chances. It actually works because there are legitimately good scares. And Ethan Hawke, once again, as the grabber, he just fits that role so well. I mean, this was a film that Blumhouse desperately needed to succeed, and it looks like it's going to succeed very well. They did very well of getting it out there before Halloween. You're getting it right before the winter season kicks in, so that wintry feel of the film feels right at home. I mean, it's a great movie, man. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year so far, honestly. I really enjoyed it. I really want to try to get out there and see it again, but we'll see what happens as the weeks go on here. But yeah, Black Phone 2 really is an impressive feat overall. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. It's a great film. Can't recommend it enough. Definitely check it out. So, but other than that, though, that's about it for the box office. No big new releases out there worth talking about. There was a new Angel Studios release, Truth and Treason, which did okay numbers, but I know nothing about it, so I can't really say anything about it. What's coming out next week? I think the only big thing coming out next week, honestly, is actually two things I'm looking at here. There's Regretting You, which is Paramount's second 2020 release this month. But we also have the biggest new release being Bruce Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, with Jeremy Allen White in it. And I'm really curious to see how that one's going to do overall. I'm really excited to see it. I love the director Scott Cooper, who did Crazy Heart. And Jeremy Allen White's a really good actor, and I really would like to see how this turns out. So I'm really looking forward to checking it out. I might not check it out next week, but when I get a chance to, hopefully I'll get to check it out pretty soon. So there you go. That's the weekend box office as a whole. So let's go ahead and get right into some news stories. And a couple of news stories from the last couple of weeks. Nothing really groundbreaking or anything that engaging overall. This could be honestly a quick show because we've only got like about 4 or 5 things to cover here, so let's just go ahead and get right to it and see what happens. So one of the big stories early from the last time we met was that the process of Heat 2 is moving fast and furious, because it is now officially in works, because we now have it now being moved from Warner Brothers to United Artists, and there are a lot of different actors circling to star in this film. I've got the story here from the Hollywood Reporter, and it says right here, Heat 2, the high-profile Michael Mann follow-up to his 1995 crime drama classic, is getting a new home, ensuring that the ambitious and buzzy feature project will be getting made after all. United Artists, the Amazon MGM Studios division, is in talks to pick up the project from Warner Brothers after the latter let the movie be shopped in August, when it was unable to agree with Mann on a budget. Hollywood vets Jerry Bruckheimer, known for his high-octane action thrillers and the Top Gun franchise, and Scott Stuber, who ran the film for Netflix and is tied to UA, has boarded the project as producers. Mann and Stuber's partners Nick Nesbitt are also producing. The crime thriller is coming with plenty of Hollywood heat, as a bevy of A-listers have been mentioned in connection to the project, with Leonardo DiCaprio circling other actors whose names have surfaced included Austin Butler, Adam Driver, and Bradley Cooper. However, no offers have been made to the talent, let alone any actor dealers signed. Mann's Heat starred Al Pacino as a hardened Los Angeles cop named Vincent Hanna, who, ignoring his deteriorating personal life, is obsessed with tracking down career criminal Neil McCauley, played by Robert De Niro, who wants to pull off one last heist before retiring. The cast also includes Val Kilmer, Ashley Judd, Amy Brenneman, Tom Sizemore, and Jon Voight. The movie proved to have a lasting impact over filmmakers and pop culture, building a legacy over the decades as a cinematic classic. A sequel to Heat began as a slow burn when Mann released the 2022 crime novel Heat 2, co-written with him by author Meg Gardia, and became a #1 New York Times bestseller. Acting as a prequel and a sequel, the sprawling Heat 2 story is set in several timelines. One follows a younger McCauley and his crew pulling off daring heists and living the high life. Another tells of what happened to Shirless, the lovelorn thief played by Kilmer in the 1995 film in the aftermath of the first movie's climactic robbery, and his multi-year quest to reunite with his former girlfriend, who was played by Judd in the original. One part of the book is set in a lawless South American drug zone, and there is an overarching bad guy more brutal than anyone has seen in the first film, a murderous and rapist named Otis Wardell. Mann and Warner spent considerable time trying to come to an agreement on a budget, several sources said. The initial budget proposal came in over $230 million, according to one source. Mann eventually whittled it down to $170 million. Warner was ready to make it for $135 to $140 million. Alternatively, according to sources, it was willing to push the budget up to $150 million if Mann would commit to not only Heat 2, but also Heat 3. Another source disputes those numbers. UA would not comment on the budget. Eric Roth, who co-wrote Mann's 1999 drama The Insider, and Shane Slomo, who was instrumental in the book deal, are executive producing. One of the issues facing any studio that picks up the project is Mann's reputation for growing past his budgets, hence the desire by some companies to try to set strict guardrails. Another issue is the multi-decade time period and locations, which range from Chicago to Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and South America. Finally, there is the massive cast of characters and the big-name actors Mann wants. No one is officially on board, although Mann is said to have been meeting with actors for months, and this is the kind of movie project that actors of all stripes want to be part of. Everyone you can think of has met on this, says one source. Even after looking for possible production partners, Warner's decided that the project was too financially risky and in August decided to let Mann shop it. While some studios and companies sat on the competition, Heat 2 became a fight in the trenches among Amazon, UA, Paramount, and Sony, according to insiders, as the studios wanted to have a chance to make what could turn out to be another crime classic. Or it could essentially turn out to be a sequel that is completely unnecessary, but I love the original Heat movie. I think it is a classic film, and I did read Heat 2. I actually got it from a Target right next to where I used to work at for a little bit when my Giant Eagle was going out of business. You know how if you live in Leicester, Pennsylvania, you always can tell that a Giant Eagle and Target will be right next to each other no matter where you go. I mean, there's like 4 places around here where there's a Target, and then there just happens to be a Giant Eagle right next to it. So during one of my breaks, I went over to Target and I grabbed a copy of Heat 2, and it's a good book overall. I'm just really curious to see how that's going to transpire into a feature film. And again, it kind of results back to, the fact that it's going to be 30 years since the original Heat. And it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, it's a sequel that really doesn't need to be made at this point, but part of me is very curious to see what they could do with these actors they bring in here and how big this project could really be. I think Amazon MGM is showing that they're not afraid of movies that are over budgeted and end up being failures, or because they'll get time on they'll make money over time with streaming and physical media releases and all that type of stuff. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm really conflicted on this whole thing, but I would like to see a Heat 2 based off the book I read. See it made into a movie and giving Michael Mann a chance to do what he can do best, even though I do have my reservations about a sequel that's way past the previous film's release. So, I mean, yeah, it's very conflicting stuff, but I'm optimistic about what they can do with it. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. And remember when everyone thought that when Snow White bombed, it basically meant that's it for the Disney live-action remakes. We're not going to see any more of them. No, sirree, Bob. And then Lilo and Stitch came out and became almost the highest-grossing movie of the year. Well, it did worldwide, but and then we got this. This is from Deadline Hollywood. Disney is taking a fresh look at the live-action take on Tangled, we hear, which is resuming early development with Scarlett Johansson circling the role of Mother Gothel. The Greatest Showman director Michael Gracey is still attached to direct, working from a script by Jennifer Katnion Robinson. Stupid pop-ups. Based on the 2010 animated feature. Disney hit pause on the project in April after getting jitters from the box office performance from the live-action take of Snow White. However, there's a big difference in regards to the audience appeals for old Disney animated picks getting a live-action take versus those titles since the 1989 Little Mermaid musical renaissance. Those live-action redos, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Lilo and Stitch, have had greater success at the box office. Lilo and Stitch alone is the highest-grossing MPA title of 2025 to date with $1.03 billion worldwide. Nothing has been formally greenlit yet in regards to Tangled. The original 2010 movie, which grossed close to $600 million worldwide, followed the magically long-haired Rapunzel, who has spent her entire life in the tower, but now that a runaway thief has stumbled upon her, she's about to discover the world for the first time and who she really is. Under its leadership, the Disney live-action team is continuing to celebrate revisit existing stories through a modern lens, while also investing in a new IP, as evidenced by the Impossible Creatures announcement earlier this week, in an effort to build a foundation on new stories that can be told for generations to come. I don't know anything about this. Let me just take a look here and see. Oh, I get it now. Oh, okay, now, I thought it was some kind of new thing to do, but no, it was basically Disney won an auction to pick up the rights to this red-hot new children's book series called Impossible Creatures, in the hopes of turning it into the next Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Twilight Saga franchise, so there you go. That's what that's all about. So I don't know anything about that per se. So, but anyway, back to this story here. Johansson's feature directorial debut, Eleanor the Great, starring June Squibb, recently opened in theaters with a 94% Rotten Tomatoes score from audiences. The movie received a 6-minute standing ovation over at Cannes Film Festival at its world premiere. The two-time Oscar nominee starred in 2 movies this summer: The Phoenician Scheme and Jurassic World Rebirth. And Johansson's films has grossed $17.7 billion worldwide at the box office, mostly because she's been associated with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But, I mean, I love Scarlett Johansson, and, you know, she's good on her for establishing a career where she starred in these multi-billion-dollar films, not just with the MCU films, but Jurassic World Rebirth was a big hit earlier this summer. I don't know why, because the movie was garbage, but yeah, if you really thought that they were going to stop doing these because of one movie in Snow White bombing, I mean, yeah, you're out of your mind here. And sure enough, I'm guaranteeing you that we're not going to see the end of this, because somehow Moana is going to probably find a way to make a ton of money, even though it really shouldn't, because, I mean, come on. Why are we making a live-action remake of Moana when it's not even 10 years after the original film? But to its credit, Michael Gracey is a decent director. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of The Greatest Showman movie itself, but I liked the soundtrack. But I really loved his last movie he did, Better Man, which was such a visual achievement, on not just a great musical, but a visual achievement with the CG monkey. But yeah, if there's one thing that can get me excited about this movie, it's him directing it. And I mean, I don't know, like, I'm really conflicted on this one here, because these live action remakes I don't hate them as much as everybody else does. I actually do like more of them than most people don't like them. I really like Lilo and Stitch, the one that came out this year. Excuse me. And I didn't even hate Snow White overall. I thought Snow White was actually not that bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it certainly was a lot better than people made it out to be. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just like, they keep making these live-action reboots instead of actually doing something new and original with it. It's the same thing with the sequels and all that. It's just like, it doesn't help your cause when you're spending more money making sequels with your Disney animated and Pixar sequels, instead of actually trying to do that same kind of marketing for your original concepts as well. Like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We've had a lot of good original Disney animation out there for both Disney and Pixar. I mean, Strange World, I still think is really good. I like Wish. I like Raya and the Last Dragon. Encanto was probably the most successful film. With Pixar, you have Elemental. You have, this past summer, we had Elio. These are really good movies, but nobody is going to see them because it doesn't feel like Disney is putting all their marketing game into them. It's just like, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, this format cannot really continue. And hopefully with the new regime that eventually will come in here, because we've been getting some reports about, possibly Dana Walden and also Josh DeMeo possibly co-CEOing at Disney whenever Bob Iger announces his retirement. But we don't know when that's going to be. But, I mean, I hope that that's their plan going forward, to try to get some more original material here, to just build the buzz back up here. I mean, geez. I mean, it just makes no sense how Disney's strategy is going right now. But, I mean, there's possible hope with this possibly working out, but I'm not really ready to be sold on this just yet, especially with how the last couple of ones have been kind of less than what they should have been. But regardless, that's what it is. That's how I feel right now about this movie right here. Not really optimistic about it, but we'll see what happens. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie. And boy, this story would have been amazing back in 1995, not 2025. And yeah, this is a story that feels 30 years too late. Speaking of going back to Heat here, but Jim Carrey is zooming towards a live-action feature version of The Jetsons. This was a story put out by The Hollywood Reporter, and it says here that the actor is in talks to star in the project from Warner Brothers Pictures that has Colin Trevorrow attached to direct. Trevorrow and Joel Epstein are in talks to pen the script. The Jetsons, which debuted as an animated comedy series on ABC in 1962, centers around a futuristic family comprised of George Jetson, his wife Jane, their two kids, Elroy and Judy, robot housekeeper Rosie, and dog Astro. Hanna-Barbera produced a space-age show that counted Will Hanna and Joseph Barbera as co-creators. Weird phrasing in that paragraph there. It was essentially a futuristic version of the Flintstones, pretty much. But here's the kicker here. A live-action feature version has been in various stages of development through the decades, with The Hollywood Reporter reporting in 2003 that Adam Shankman was attached to direct. Such filmmakers as Robert Rodriguez and Conrad Vernon had also been talks at different stages over the years. Back in 2017, ABC ordered a pilot for a live-action TV version from Robert Zemeckis. That project did not end up going to series. Carrey's recent film credits have mostly been linked to his portrayal as Dr. Robotnik in Paramount's live-action Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, while the actor playing a dual role in the latest version. Carrey's last movie outside the Sonic series was the drama Dark Crimes that made its festival premiere in 2016. Trevorrow's latest feature as director was 2022's Jurassic World Dominion. Epstein served as a showrunner and executive producer on the HBO series The Idol. So just to give you kind of an indication of how long this movie has been in development, because they've been talking about doing a Jetsons movie for years now, like not even with just these movies here, but they were talking about doing a Jetsons series, a Jetsons movie all the way back in 1985 at Paramount. Like if you ever go online and look up the Paramount 1985 coming attractions thing, one of the big projects that they were talking about in development now was a Jetsons movie, and I've got that right here. Let's take a look.
The Last Holiday, a very funny comedy. George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy, Jane his wife. The Jetsons, live in their first full-length feature. Executive producer Gary Nardino.
So yeah, this is a project that goes all the way back to 1985, but that project fell off. And then Universal eventually picked up the rights to both the Flintstones and the Jetsons. And then we got the animated Jetsons movie, which came out mostly to tie into the Universal Studios Florida attraction, The Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera. And of course, following that, 4 years later, the Flintstones live-action movie would come out. But let me just give you a rundown of how long this project has been in development. I'm looking at the page here on Wikipedia. In November of 2001, screenwriting duo Paul Foley and Dan Foreman were brought on board to revise a script, with Rob Minkoff attached as director and Denise DeNova as producer. In March of 2003, it was announced the script was again being reworked, with previously mentioned Adam Shankman entered negotiations to direct and co-write the script. June 2004, the latest draft was penned by Sam Harper of Cheaper by the Dozen. Then in May 2006, the project was relaunched with Adam F. Goldberg as the new screenwriter, who of course would later go on to create The Goldbergs, and Donald DeLine as the producer. Then in May of 2007, Robert Rodriguez entered talks with Universal and Warner Brothers to film a CGI adaptation of The Jetsons for a 2009 release. having at the time discussed directing the feature adaptation of Land of the Lost, Rodriguez was certain which project he would pursue next, though the latest script draft by the Jetsons by Goldberg was further along in development. In January of 2012, recording artist Kanye West was mistakenly reported as creative director over the project, though West claimed on social media that I was just discussing becoming the creative director for the Jetsons movie, and someone on the call yelled out, "You should do a Jetsons tour." Which, if you've ever seen the video for Heartless, you can see the Jetsons in the background on the wall in the video, which would make a whole lot of sense if that were to happen, but in February 2012, Warner Brothers hired Van Robachai and Evan Susso to rewrite the script. On January 23, 2015, Warner Brothers planned a new Jetsons film with Matt Lieberman as the screenwriter, and then in 2017, Conrad Vernon was announced as the director of the film. And then August 17, 2017, ABC ordered a pilot for the live-action sitcom version of the Jetsons by Gary Janetti of Family Guy fame, and executive produced by Robert Zemeckis, and of course we know how that turned out. So yeah, this is a project that's been in the works now for nearly 40 years. It's taken them 40 years to get this movie off the ground, so yeah, chances are this probably ain't getting made anytime soon. I mean, it would have to take something extravagant, something like really, like it would have to take like a really good script overall, or something that was like ready to go to get this done immediately, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. And Jim Carrey in this, if he's going to play George Jetson, guy's kind of a little old to be playing George Jetson. I mean, like, if you wanted to do a live-action Jetsons movie nowadays, I can think of so many other younger people who could possibly play George and the Jetson family. In fact, I've done, like, dream casting blog post over on the website a long time ago. Like, back in 2017, I did one. I think I had, I had Zachary Levi as George Jetson, which, of course, that's likely not going to happen now because Zachary Levi is pretty fucking crazy. And then back then I had like Isla Fisher as Jane, Kristen Chenoweth as Rosie the Robot, and of course, yeah, most people would say Danny DeVito as Mr. Spacely, but I would also possibly say Peter Dinklage. Like, if you're going to do it now, I'd probably say, like, for George and Jane, probably the two people I would think of right now, Jack Quaid, who was just in Novocaine, and then also for Jane, I would probably say Jessica Chastain. I mean, you want to get, she could make that work. She can make that work. She's got the red hair to make Jane work. But again, it's just a matter of if this thing's actually going to get made. Which, by considering the fact that it's been 40 years since this project first got underway, yeah, chances are that ain't happening anytime soon. So I would not be shocked at all if this is just something where people are speculating that it's going to happen, and then it just kind of gets pushed off to the side and just never gets talked about ever again. So. But again, we'll see what happens there. I thought Warner Brothers was also doing an animated Jetsons movie, so what's going on with that one? I'm really curious about what's going on with that one. But anyway, that's that story. So let's go ahead and move on to one last big news story here, and then I have one more thing I want to cover here. So early in the year, I was talking about the show Pop Culture Jeopardy, which is a really fun show overall. It was on Amazon Prime, and it was a really fun version of Jeopardy for somebody like me who loves entertainment and all that, like movie news, movies, TVs, different animations, all that type of stuff. I mean, and so I bring this up because the big story this week was that we're getting a second season of Pop Culture Jeopardy. However, it is moving over to Netflix. Got the story here from Deadline Hollywood. It says, Pop Culture Jeopardy has a new home. The spinoff of the iconic game show is making a surprise move from Amazon to Netflix for its second season. The series comes from Sony Picture Television's game show division and is an extremely rare move in the world of entertainment formats. Colin Jost, who hosted the first season on Amazon, which launched in December, is in talks to return for the second season. The move comes as Amazon is figuring out its unscripted strategy. The streamer has a new global head of television and former Netflix exec Peter Friedlander, who will likely want to put his own stamp on things. Lauren Anderson, who currently oversees Unscripted, has been increasingly focusing on the advertisement side of the business and head of branded content innovation at Amazon MGM Studios and Prime Video, while the Unscripted studio MGM Alternate TV was recently moved under the division that Freelander now oversees. Pop Culture Jeopardy is a new twist on the classic show that originally started in 1964 and features 3 contestants trying to be experts in categories such as alternative rock, the Avengers, MMA, Broadway, Gen Z, and Zendaya. Contestants playing in teams of 3 will compete in a tournament-style event for the grand prize and ultimate bragging rights. It launched on Amazon as part of a game show block, Winning Wednesdays. It also features the Travis Kelce hosted Are You Smarter Than a Celebrity, JB Smoove fronted Buy It Now, and Wishlist Games. The status of these titles is currently unclear, but it's no surprise to say that Kelce is busy with the Kansas City Chiefs and an upcoming wedding to Taylor Swift, so may not be returning to the studio anytime soon. So Pop Culture Jeopardy is the big news for this is that Pop Culture Jeopardy is getting another season, but it's moving over to Netflix, which no big deal. I mean, no big deal for me, but I don't know. I just like having it on Amazon, so I could just go right to it before I'm watching like the NFL football games and all that. But I don't know, just little nitpicky things here and there. But well, I'm glad to see the show's coming back. I do really like the show. I thought it was a ton of fun last year, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the new version of it. So regardless of what network it's on, I'm glad to see it's coming back. So. Well, with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last thing I want to cover here, and unfortunately, it's another tragic death in the world of entertainment. So earlier in this year, we talked about the legacy of Drew Struzan, and we did a segment in one of the episodes talking about Drew Struzan's career as a whole, as we found out that he was no longer able to do what he did best because of the after effects of Alzheimer's disease. And now this week, unfortunately, we've been given the sad news that he has indeed passed away from those complications from Alzheimer's. It was announced on March, I'm looking at it right here, March 2025, Struzan's wife revealed that he'd been living with Alzheimer's disease for several years, saying that his illness has been progressing to the point where he's fighting for his life and could no longer pay to sign things for fans. He died on October 13, 2025 at the age of 78 years old. Drew Struzan, and I said it before, Drew Struzan was mostly known for these great movie posters, album covers, collectibles, book covers, things that just looked incredible because he was a master at airbrushing these one-sheets with these film posters. He had done this for the longest time, starting with B-movies back in the day, and it was well received by people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas that he eventually got to work on their films, and thus creating some of the most memorable posters in motion picture history. Great posters for the Indiana Jones movies, the Star Wars films, E.T., An American Tail, Back to the Future. I mean, the list goes on and on. So many great posters out there. I mean, when I put together that tribute video I did over on the main channel, I went straight to the IMDb awards page because there's a specific section dedicated to Drew Struzan's work, and I don't think it really covered every single one of those posters on there because there's some key ones missing there, like Raiders of the Lost Ark was not there. Neither was the early stuff for Star Wars, which then again I don't. Okay, maybe I'm reading it wrong here because I know that he did the later ones, but I'm looking at the poster right now on Wikipedia just to see, and it was a different person who did the Raiders of the Lost Ark poster than the one who would eventually do the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and all those other ones after that. Who did the original Star Wars ones, though? I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Okay, Tom Jung was the one who did the Star Wars originals, but of course, when you think of these classic movies and all that, you think of the great work that Drew Struzan brought to the table, and definitely somebody that is one of the greatest artists we've ever had. I mean, I wish I could say more that I hadn't already said in the original segment I did back in March, but this really is somebody that was really one of those people that personified the movies back in the day. This was back before we had Photoshop and CG and AI and green screen and all that type of stuff. When you actually made something that looked really cool because it looked handmade and it looked like somebody actually did what they were supposed to do, did their job. I mean, it was such a great looking. It was a great feeling to be around that time. Like, that's a great time to be alive again. What a time to be alive. Like, this is the guy that made so many memorable posters in our lifetime, and it's just a shame that he's no longer doing what he does best, and the world of making these posters has changed so much that these unique posters from the past have essentially been replaced by Photoshop photos or celebrity stock photos for these characters, for these posters in general. But I'm going to miss him a lot. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to miss what this guy has done so much. I mean, Drew, you lived a great life. We're going to be eternally grateful for what you did. Rest in peace, my friend. Rest in peace. So with that said, let's go ahead and wrap it up here with some recommendations, and then we'll get on out of here. So after what was a very stacked week for new releases last week, I mean, we had a lot of big new releases in the form of Weapons, Fantastic Four First Steps, Mission Impossible, the Back to the Future trilogy coming out on 4K for the 40th anniversary. Well, it's been out on 4K, but this is the 40th anniversary sets. Yeah, not surprising that this week is kind of slow overall. Not a lot of big new releases, but in terms of catalog titles, there's some pretty cool stuff out there. Clue's got a nice steelbook for its 40th anniversary coming out. Paramount's putting it out there. I have the original, I have the Shout Factory one that came out, I think, last year, which I think is probably the better option here. But if you want a steelbook of Clue, I think that's the best option. I think that's another good option there. Of course, and then we have another classic 80s movie, Altered States, getting a Criterion Collection release. The William Hurt movie, William Hurt sci-fi film. History of Violence, a great David Cronenberg movie, also getting a Criterion release this weekend. Other than that, though, that's pretty much about it. And not really surprising at all, considering how many big new releases we had last week. In fact, even the next week doesn't have anything too impressive overall in terms of new releases that I'm looking at here. The only thing that I see for the week after this is another Criterion release coming out, Nightmare Alley, and Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is getting its own Blu-ray release. So if you've been one of those people that want Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island on Blu-ray but don't want to have the sequel, Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island, like myself, that's probably your best option right there. So kind of give you a spoiler for next week, but then again, hey, considering that we are going to be off for the next couple of weeks from this format, that's probably for the best here. But yeah, like I said, that's going to do it for this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And as I said before, if we have any big news stories coming up in the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely cover them in a separate segment on the channel here. We'll do like a little bonus video here, but in the meantime, we will. Starting next week on October 26th, we have 4 consecutive weeks of the Reviewing Network Live Sunday Night NFL Rewatch, which will begin with the Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Aaron Rodgers Bowl. We'll have that for you next Sunday night. We'll have a mid-afternoon game on the first Sunday in November, as we'll have the big AFC showdown between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. And then on November the 9th, we'll be back on Sunday night with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in LA. And then we'll wrap it up on November 16th with the Detroit Lions taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 hot NFC teams. And 4 consecutive weeks of the Reviewing Network Live Sunday Night NFL Rewatch coming your way starting next week. So stay tuned for that. But with all that said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you did enjoy this. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification button. Also, check out the last episode we did, as well as the playlist featuring some of the last all the episodes we've done. And with all that said, I will see you guys next week. So thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Until then, we are out.